Hey guys, thanks for all the comments.
You guys seem to enjoy my last video about a book based off of a comic book movie, so here's another. Matt Reeves The Batman released in March earlier this year, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of hype for this movie. There were interviews with the director and stars, and commercial and ads were everywhere. But one thing that was released prior to the film was an official prequel novel titled Before the Batman, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a novel that follows Bruce Wayne before the events of the movie. Now I heard about this when it was published, and I finally got around to picking it up. I was curious what's in here, and if it adds anything to the world and characters of the Batman movie. So I got it, and I read it. I'm gonna let you guys know if it's any good, and if it's worth your time. Well, if you look at the title of the video, I guess you already know the answer. So this was published by Random House, and they publish a lot of kids books, sticker, color, and picture books, and a few tie-in stories to TV shows, and they have a few novelizations of popular movies. The author of this prequel novel is David Lumen, who has done novelizations for the two recent Jurassic Park movies. Now you probably noticed that the cover of these Jurassic Park novelizations say Junior novelization on them, and you probably also noticed that the publisher primarily focuses on making books on popular IPs for kids. And this Batman novel is exactly that, a book made for kids between ages 8 and 12 who like Batman. Hell, they even have random pages that are thick cardstock that have images from the trailer and some trivia on it. I mean, they have Selena Kyle here, and she's not mentioned anywhere in the book. And there's also a fold-out poster in the back, so clearly this was made for marketing. And it goes without saying that I'm not the target demographic for this, but I don't mind reading books like this because I think they're fun. I love Goosebumps growing up, as well as scary stories to tell in the dark, and hell, from time to time, I'll pick up a book like this just for an easy, fun read. Now, I tell you this because I want to inform you on what kind of book this is, and who it's made for, because the tone and subject matter of this book doesn't nearly get as dark as the movie. I mean, they say stuff like crap, dang, and butt, instead of shit, damn, or ass. Also, the quality of writing is very simple and straightforward. It's not overly complex by any means. Think of it like an R.L. Stine's children book, like the Goosebumps series. It's about on par with that, maybe a little bit more sophisticated. You can actually read a sample of this on Google or Amazon, so I'll put some pages on screen now to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. It's an easy read and you can really knock it out in like 3 hours if you really wanted to. Okay, but enough of that stuff, let's talk about the actual content. It's about 140 pages long and separated into two parts. Part 1 follows a teenage Bruce Wayne who spends his summer street racing and working on his car. We'll get more into that later, don't worry. And then Part 2 follows a mid to late 20s Bruce Wayne at the start of his crime fighting career, and an early case that he helped solve. Now, after finishing it, I gotta say, this was kind of a waste of time, but I did have a little fun with it. If you're looking for new information that really builds and expands upon the world and characters of Matt Reeves' Batman movie, you're not really gonna get it. I mean, sure, it does add some tidbits of information to characters, but it's nothing groundbreaking or anything that drastically changes the way you view the characters or world. Here, I'll give you some examples. You learn that Alfred trained Bruce how to fight, which is mentioned in the movie, but here they actually have a sparring match. Bruce also built his muscle car Batmobile himself, which we assumed in the movie, but it's just confirmed here. He made his own makeshift tool belt to make it easier to work on his car, which of course is something he uses later on when he's fighting crime. He really likes forensic science and studies it. He also likes chemistry and made his own chemistry set. The Batcave is an old train stop that is located under Wayne Tower, and it was a private stop for just his family. But for the last couple of decades, it's been abandoned. And Bruce is so good at driving because he liked street racing as a teenager. We also get a few bits of info about Edward Nashton here. Yeah, he's in the book too at a few points. We see that he hated living in that orphanage, which was the old Wayne Manor that was donated. He was picked on by the other kids. He had a job delivering food in high school to help pay for college. And as an adult, he burnt down the orphanage because he hated it. And he also hated Bruce Wayne his whole life. That's about it. There isn't anything added that really gives us a new insight on the character that isn't already stated in the movie. It more so just kind of reinforces it. And the new info we learn about Bruce really doesn't amount to much, although a neat touch is having the prologue of the book be Thomas Wayne at the old Wayne Manor, now an orphanage, announcing that he's running for mayor. And we get a moment where young Edward, who's in the choir, was eyeing Bruce Wayne. We see this in the movie, so I thought it was a neat place to start the story. So now you know that there isn't anything enlightening or eye-opening here, and what I just listed is really the most interesting things you'll learn. I think it's time to talk more about each part of the book. So spoilers ahead if you care. So part 1 is about a 17-year-old Bruce Wayne who's home for the summer from boarding school. He's looking for something to do to kill some time, so he works on his car, and eventually he meets a chick named Dex, who invites him to do some illegal street racing. And this whole section I didn't really care for. It's exactly what it sounds like. Bruce Wayne working on his car, driving around, then eventually racing. On top of that, Edward's story is spliced in at random moments, and eventually he has a hand in causing an accident at one of the races. This part was largely a waste of time, but I found it kind of funny, because I never thought that I would read a Batman story where a young Bruce Wayne spends a summer street racing. This is canon to the movie, by the way. This part is 68 pages long, so about half of the book's length. And even though I found it amusing, it could have been considerably shorter. So this part, yeah, not so good. Now part 2 is the stuff that most people wanted to see, and that's Bruce Wayne starting his vigilante crime fighting career. We get a time skip and it briefly touches on Bruce going to different colleges around the world, being really smart, and eventually he's in his late 20s and he starts crime fighting. He builds a makeshift suit, and his first act is stopping a guy who's stealing from a jewelry store. He stops him, but the guy uses this special gel that is explosive, explosive, and it can be detonated remotely, and he gets away. So the mystery of this section is, what is this gel, how does it work, and who's selling it to the criminals? Bruce eventually gets in touch with someone at GCPD, and it's not Gordon, surprisingly. It's a female detective named Drew? Am I saying that right? Anyway, he sends the detective notes asking her for help, and giving her information about the gel that he found out. They work together for a bit while Bruce tracks down who's selling this stuff. He finds out it's his old friend Dex, the girl he met over the summer that one time when he was street racing. She's involved as a delivery driver, and through her he finds out that a guy named Piggy is actually in charge of the operation, and he's working with Penguin and doing it behind Falcone's back. So he sets out to stop the operation, and him and Dex do that. Also, Edward is here, and the most eventful thing that he does is burn down the orphanage he grew up in. So I found this section way more interesting than the first, because it's what I was expecting the book to be from the start. A brief rundown of events before the movie of him doing some crime fighting. This part is actually shorter than the first, ending on page 134. And then there's a short page-and-a-half epilogue a few years later, and it's basically the beginning of the movie, ending with him saying that he is the Shadows. So overall, I found the second half to be much better than the first, because the whole teenage street racing thing was kinda silly. Something the book doesn't do, which actually surprises me, was touch on Bruce's parents' death more. It mentions it in the beginning, and Alfred and Bruce have a conversation about it at the end of part 1, but it's not brought up and used as a driving force for him wanting to don the mask and cape and become a crime fighter. Instead, he becomes a crime fighter because it felt good to help people. I think this might come down to the fact that this is a children's book, so they probably didn't want Bruce to be brooding and grieving the whole time, feeling tortured over the loss of his parents. That would be my guess. Now again, I know this isn't meant for someone at my age. If I was 10 or 11, I probably would have really enjoyed this book, but as an adult and a fan of the movie, this book was ultimately a waste of time. I think it's a fun waste of time because the whole street racing thing was pretty silly, and the second half is actually pretty entertaining. Although even as an adult, I can read some books meant for children and still enjoy them, like Goosebumps. Welcome to Dead House, Night of the Living Dummy, and The Haunted Mask still slaps, and there's still some very solid reads despite being written for like 10-year-olds. So in the end, if you're looking for more information and lore about the Batman world and characters, you're not going to get it here. I mean, who would have thought that a prequel tie-in novel wouldn't be that good? Shocking, I know.
Not as shocking as this.
Yeah, I can't recommend this book to anyone who actually wants meaningful and new information. I mean, if you want to waste some time, I guess you can, but I more than guarantee you're going to walk away disappointed. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, go and drop a like on it. Let me know how you feel about this new type of content. I enjoy reading, and I enjoy doing stuff like this, so leave a comment, let me know if you want to see more of it. So thanks for watching, and riddle me this.
What is long, hard, and has cum in the middle? A penis. No, the answer is cucumber.
Fun facts about Morbius. He is a Marvel legend. He's super fit.
Pilates helps.
He needs to consume blood to live. He is